I lost everything in 7 days. My marriage, my company, my reputation, and $6.3 million I spent half my life building. And when I fell, he laughed. My own husband. You'll never recover, Evelyn. Those words still taste like poison. But he didn't know something my father left behind for me long before he died. A sealed envelope marked with 9 words that would one day make his blood run cold. I never thought I would open it. People like me don't prepare for losing. We prepare for scaling, winning, expanding. But life has a quiet way of humbling you. And I'm glad you're here, because if I'm finally telling this story, I want someone out there to feel what I felt the moment everything I trusted turned to dust. Let me take you back to the beginning, before lawyers, betrayal, and headlines, when my world still made sense. It was a stormy Thursday in Seattle, rain streaking down the glass of my corner office at Carter Strategic Consulting, my firm, my baby. 10 years of growth, national clients, 42 employees who trusted me like family. I was 49, successful, comfortable. I had a husband, Mark, handsome, polished, sharp in every room he walked into. He handled our PR and political contracts. People loved him instantly. I used to think I was lucky. Back then, my mornings started with almond coffee, client briefings, and the comforting hum of a company I built from scratch. I remember standing by that window, overlooking the city, thinking, this is stability. This is security. I smile now when I look back, because I was wrong. About everything. Sometimes I replay little moments, tiny details that meant nothing then but mean everything now. Like the night Mark came home late and said, long meeting. Don't wait up next time. Or how he started wearing cologne he never used before. Or how he turned his phone upside down on the table. At the time, I brushed it off. Marriage is trust, right? You don't question the person you share a bed with, not until the universe forces you to. But the real beginning, the crack in the wall, started when Mark suggested we partner with Senator Valerie Green, a rising name with deep pockets and ambition that smelled like perfume and danger. I admired her sharp mind, media favorite, the kind of woman headlines worship. I didn't know she would be the one to help destroy me. We secured a contract with her campaign, 7 figures on the table. Mark said it was a breakthrough. I believed him. We celebrated with champagne, laughter echoing off marble countertops in our kitchen. I remember thinking, we're unstoppable. But that night, when he hugged me, something in his body felt distant. Not cold, just not mine. I didn't understand it then. And that wasn't the worst part. People ask when I first knew my life was about to collapse. Truth is, I didn't. Not even when I should have. Not even when I saw her hand brush his at a gala and his smile lasted 1 second too long. The storm was coming, but I was still standing in the sunshine. I wish someone had warned me. Or maybe someone did. My father always said, trust breaks quietly. I never paid attention. Not until it was too late. Because in just a few weeks, that contract and the 2 people I trusted most would turn my world inside out. The affair, the takeover, the legal trap waiting for me, I had no idea. All I knew was this. I was about to lose everything. And soon, I would open that envelope. The one marked, open when you have nothing left. Before I go deeper, tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. And if stories like this stay with you, please like and subscribe. It really helps me continue sharing the truths I've carried for years. All right, back to where everything still looked perfect from the outside. Life then felt steady, routine, predictable in the comfortable way success spoils you. My mornings began with emails and client decks, my evenings with wine on the balcony overlooking the sound. People respected me. My firm was thriving. I had my dream team, analysts, strategists, interns hungry to learn. When my employees smiled at me in hallways, I felt proud, needed. Mark and I were a power couple, or at least that's how magazines framed us when we landed the green account. His hand at my waist during press photos, her standing beside us, teeth white enough to blind camera flashes. We weren't just growing, we were ascending. Some nights, After events, we'd drive home in silence, comfortable silence, or so I told myself. Sometimes he hummed softly to the radio, and I'd watch his profile lit by passing streetlights, wondering if maybe we were finally building something lasting. Stability, legacy. But in hindsight, small things were already slipping. He became obsessed with his phone, constant alerts, hushed tones, late-night messages. I once woke at 2:14 a.m. to an empty side of the bed and found him in the hallway whispering sharply into the speaker. "Don't worry, she won't find out." He claimed it was business, and I believed him, because love makes you grateful for crumbs. One quote from that time still haunts me, something he said casually, like a joke. "You work too hard. One day you won't have to." I laughed then. Now it feels like a warning. Business with Senator Green pushed forward fast, too fast. Meetings ran late, documents piled up, contracts thick as bricks. Mark handled negotiations. He insisted he was better with politicians. "Let me wear that wake," he'd say, kissing my forehead. It felt sweet. Now I know it was strategy. Still, there were moments of calm, dinners with staff, weekends at the lake house my father left me before he passed. That house, it smelled like pine and old books. He'd built it with his own hands. After he died, I kept his belongings sealed in the attic. Tools, journals, a dusty storage trunk I never opened. I always planned to. Someday. But someday always feels far away when you think life will only get better. Mark rarely wanted to go there. Too quiet, he said. No reception. He liked noise, attention, rooms filled with people who shook his hand too tightly. Yet even then, something in my chest whispered that stillness was trying to tell me something. I ignored it. Instead, I focused on expansion. 2 new clients. 1 massive proposal. A projected growth of 38% that quarter. My staff celebrated with cake shaped like our logo. I still have the photos, mid-blowing candles, Mark behind me, hands on my shoulders. But when I look at that photo now, I notice something I didn't see then. His eyes weren't on me. They were on her, Valerie, across the room, smiling too wide. Was it obvious? Maybe. But denial is comfort wrapped in hope. The first real crack came 3 weeks later. Small, subtle, like wood bending before it snaps. A financial discrepancy in the campaign account. Just $18,000 missing. I confronted Mark, not accusing, just curious. He brushed it off. Accounting glitch. I'll handle it. I let it go. One little anomaly in a sea of victory. But looking back, that moment was the doorway. And I walked right through it, blind. Because soon, the money wouldn't be the only thing disappearing. My trust would vanish next. And then, everything else. The missing $18,000 should have bothered me more than it did. But success is a powerful sedative. It convinces you that problems are beneath you. I told myself it wasn't worth stressing over. Mark had handled finances for years. He knew the system. The clients adored him. If he said it was a glitch, why wouldn't I believe it? Still, something in me refused to settle. A week later, during a late strategy meeting, I found myself alone in the office. Everyone had left, the lights dimmed, coffee cups abandoned, chairs pushed back in a hurry. I stayed to finalize a proposal for a pharmaceutical client. Mark said he'd be out meeting Senator Green again. He didn't invite me. I remember leaning back in my chair past midnight, stretching my neck, exhaustion heavy behind my eyes. I reached for my laptop to check campaign files, something I rarely did myself because that was his department. But I needed a specific report Valerie wanted by morning. That's when I found it. A hidden folder. Buried deep, no label, no reason to exist. Inside were PDF transfers, signatures, and communication logs between Mark and Valerie, dated months before they ever pitched the partnership to me. My stomach tightened. Was this preparation, planning, or just routine political vetting? I wanted to believe the third. But one email subject line burned itself into my mind. Phase 2, after control transfer. Control of what? The account? The company? Me? I clicked. Access denied. Password protected. My throat dried. I shut the laptop fast, like a child closing a scary book. I told myself I was overreacting, tired, reading into nothing. But when I drove home, the steering wheel felt slippery with sweat, and the seatbelt pressed too tight against my chest. The house was dark. Mark wasn't home. Again, at 1:43 a.m., the garage opened. He walked in smelling like expensive wine and her perfume, a floral scent I'd only encountered once before, when Valerie leaned close to whisper congratulations during a fundraiser. But that night, it filled my living room like a warning. He smiled at me, surprised I was still awake. "Working late?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. "You?" He hesitated, half a second, maybe. Too short to prosecute, too long to ignore. "Strategy dinner," he said lightly. "Campaign talk. You'd be bored." I forced a smile. I didn't ask more, but that silence lodged itself in my spine. For days I tried to shake the unease. I threw myself into work. Meetings, lunches, presentations. My assistant Mia asked if I was okay once, said I looked distracted. I laughed it off, but distraction grew into obsession. I started noticing everything. How Mark's phone never left his pocket. How he angled the screen away when it buzzed. How Valerie's team requested him personally instead of me. How suddenly clients were redirected through him instead of our office pipeline. And the strangest thing, 2 old investors invited me to lunch, only to ask why Mark was taking more leadership. Leadership I never assigned. I remember stirring my coffee so long the cream turned the color of stormwater. Leadership? By whose authority? One of them leaned in and said gently, "Just be careful. Politics plays a different game." That sentence followed me home like a ghost. 3 nights later, unable to sleep, I went into Mark's study while the shower ran. I had never snooped in my life. I valued privacy, trust, boundaries. But trust had started to feel like foolishness. I opened his desk drawer. Inside was a second phone. Locked. Clean. No scratches, like it barely left someone's hand. I stared at it for a long time, pulse loud in my ears. I didn't take it, didn't unlock it. I just closed the drawer and walked out, heart pounding like an alarm bell. I wanted to believe the best. I really did. But doubt had rooted itself too deep. Something was wrong. I just didn't know yet how wrong. Because soon, I wouldn't just find proof. I would find betrayal crafted like architecture, planned, funded, polished, long before I ever saw the cracks. And the first piece of evidence was still waiting for me, in a place I should have never looked. The night I found the second phone, something inside me shifted, not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet click, like a lock turning. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed truth, not guesses. So I waited. I became observant in my own home, a stranger to my own marriage. For 2 weeks, Mark acted as if life was perfect. He kissed my cheek every morning, made jokes over breakfast, talked about campaign growth like nothing had changed. His tone was sweet, but his eyes, cold, focused elsewhere. Then came the charity gala, the night everything snapped into clarity. It was a ballroom of diamonds and politicians, camera flashes like lightning. Valerie arrived in a white silk gown, gliding through the crowd like she owned every heartbeat in the room. Mark's face lit up in a way it hadn't for me in months. She hugged him, too long. His hand lingered at her waist, too comfortable. I told myself not to assume, not to become jealous. But then I went to the restroom, and on my way back, I saw them through a glass partition half hidden behind a marble pillar. Her lips at his ear, his hand cupping her jaw. A moment too intimate to misunderstand. No kiss, but worse, familiarity. I froze. My breath caught like a stitch in my ribs. A woman walked past me and muttered, "You okay?" I nodded even though nothing in me was okay. I didn't confront them. Instead, I walked back into the ballroom and smiled like every other polished woman swallowing betrayal in silk and heels. But inside, a truth settled like stone. Something was happening behind my back, and I was done pretending otherwise. That night, when we got home and Mark fell asleep, I stayed at the ceiling in the dark. Shadows of rain streaked across the window, and I kept hearing the investor's warning. Politics plays a different game. By 3 a.m., I got up quietly and went into his study again. I opened the drawer, my hands shaking, and took the second phone. I didn't unlock it. I just put it in my robe pocket and walked out. I sat alone at the kitchen counter staring at the blank screen. I tried one thing, my birthday as a passcode. Access denied. Then our wedding anniversary. Access denied. It felt theatrical, like the phone was mocking me. I don't know what possessed me, but I entered Valerie's birthday, the one splashed on every campaign article. Phone unlocked. My blood turned to ice. Hundreds of messages. Late-night calls. Voice notes. Transfers. Document scans. Meeting logs. It hit me like a punch. Not just an affair. A partnership. A plan. One message read, "Once she signs the restructure, we move phase 2. Another. She trusts me completely. Timing perfect. I scrolled, breathing shallow. My hand shook so violently I nearly dropped the phone. Photos followed. Dinners, private meetings, hands held under tables. And one message from Mark. After takeover, you'll step in as public face. Evelyn steps back slowly. Quiet exit. Quiet exit. From my own company. It felt like acid in my lungs. I slid off the chair, sitting on cold tile, sobbing silently so he wouldn't hear. My chest felt like it was collapsing. I wiped my mouth, rocking, whispering. Why? Why? I wasn't just losing a husband. I was losing the life I built brick by brick. And he was preparing to replace me, professionally and personally. Morning came like punishment. I didn't confront him directly. I played normal, served coffee, kissed his cheek, and watched guilt flash in his eyes, or maybe satisfaction. Some betrayals look like victory to the betrayer. But I knew one thing. This wasn't over. That night, I drove to my father's cabin for clarity, the first time in years. The house was silent, dust thick on windows, his tools still hanging where he left them. I opened the attic. There, beneath old coats and boxes, sat the storage trunk I always avoided. Heavy, wooden, with rusted hinges. Inside were journals and one sealed envelope with my name. Open when you have nothing left. My fingers trembled around the flap. Not yet. I wasn't ready. But soon, I'd need it. Desperation was coming fast, like a wave ready to drown me, and they were preparing their final blow. I sat alone in the cabin that night, rain tapping the windows like impatient knuckles. The envelope was still on the table, ivory, yellowing at the edges, sealed with wax like something out of another era. My father had written my name in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Small, steady letters. Confident. Like he knew exactly when I'd need them. But I didn't open it. Not yet. There's a kind of grief that needs silence before anger can take shape. I spent hours just sitting, remembering him, his voice, his laugh, the way he'd say, "Never trust comfort, Evie. It breeds lazy wolves." I didn't understand it when he was alive. I do now. Morning crept in through the blinds in pale gold stripes. My eyes were swollen from crying, but something inside me felt different, not lighter, but sharper, like my grief had hardened into a blade. I realized something important. They weren't just cheating on me. They were planning to erase me. People don't build a secret phone, secret contracts, and quiet exit strategies for an affair. They were building a takeover, a replacement, a removal with a smile. I went back to the city, calm in a way I didn't recognize. A quiet coldness, like winter inside my bones. At the office, everything looked normal. Employees rushing, coffee smells, printed jams, meetings waiting. No one knew the storm beneath my blouse and steady voice. Mark arrived late, confident, polished like always. He kissed my cheek out of habit, expecting me to melt. But I didn't flinch. He noticed. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm perfect," I lied. I watched him the way a surgeon studies an X-ray, clinically, without emotion. Every move, every glance, every word became data. A new game had begun. And this time, I wasn't the trusting wife. I started gathering proof. Emails, transfers, signed drafts. I printed files, hid duplicates in safe places. Copied drives. I hired a forensic accountant quietly, through a client I trusted more than family. She said she'd keep everything confidential. She didn't ask why. She'd seen this story before. Every step felt like reclaiming oxygen. I attended meetings with Valerie now, but differently, not as a partner, but as a detective. Her smile too bright, her questions too direct, her jokes at my expense too casual. I heard the subtext in everything. At one meeting she said lightly, "You must be exhausted running everything alone." I smiled back just as lightly. Am I? Or is someone trying to make me think I am? Her eyes flickered, just a microsecond, but I saw it. They were close to executing their plan. I could feel it. Later that week, a board meeting was scheduled that I wasn't informed about, only discovered because Mia accidentally forwarded me the wrong internal memo. The agenda line was short, brutal. Leadership restructuring proposal, presented by Mark and Valerie. My blood ran cold. They were going to vote me out. Of my own company. Lose my marriage? Maybe I could survive. But lose my identity, my life's work? No. That night, I drove back to the cabin, rain hitting the windshield like war drums. I brought the envelope to the living room, sat in the chair my father used to read in, and finally, hands steady this time, broke the seal. Inside wasn't a letter at first. It was a key. Old, heavy, iron. And behind it, a note, only 9 words long. When they come for what's yours, let them. I read it 5 times. 10. It made no sense. Let them? Why would he say that? How could surrender be protection? But below the 9 words was something else. Faint writing on the back, almost invisible, like pencil faded by years. I held it near the lamp. A location, coordinates, and a date, 20 years old. My father had planned something long before I knew I'd need it. I leaned back, heart pounding differently now. Not with fear, with purpose. If they wanted war, I would give them silence instead. Silence, and something they would never see coming. Tomorrow, they'd think they were taking everything. But tomorrow was when I would start taking back more than they ever imagined. The board meeting was scheduled for Thursday, 9 a.m. sharp. The room would be full. Partners, investors, legal counsel. Everyone who thought they knew what was coming. Mark believed he'd walk in with Valerie, present restructuring, and watch my empire slip through my fingers while I sat there powerless, humiliated. He expected tears. Shock. Maybe even begging. But that morning, I dressed calmly. A navy suit, hairpinned neatly, pearl earrings my father bought me when I opened the firm. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't tremble. I had spent the last 3 nights barely sleeping, gathering evidence, signing private agreements, activating fail-safes my father must have somehow anticipated. The coordinates led me to a safety deposit box in an old downtown bank, one only I could access. Inside it were documents I never knew existed. My father, years before his death, had invested quietly into my business in its early stage. Not just morally, legally, structurally. He held 51% ownership, transferred to me upon his death. I never claimed the transfer. Too busy grieving. Too confident I didn't need it. Mark thought shares were split, 40% me, 35% him, 25% board. But legally, I own 51%. And the signature to activate it only required my key. The same key that came with the letter. His 9 words weren't poetic. They were strategy. When they come for what's yours, let them. Let them move. Let them strike first. Let them believe they won. Then end them cleanly. 9 a.m. Conference room. Glass table. Folders lined like loaded guns. Mark sits beside Valerie, hand over hers. Subtle but not subtle. Some board members exchange glances. They think they are watching history. He clears his throat confidently, like he's stepping onto a stage. Thank you all for coming. We'd like to propose a leadership transition to secure the future of Carter Strategic Consulting. Evelyn has been under immense stress. I raise a hand slightly. Mark, I say softly, why don't you show them the full plan? I'm listening. He smirks, the kind of smile men wear when they think they're smarter than you. Valerie slides printed documents across the table. Transfer of authority, asset reallocation, CEO shift, ownership restructure. Clean. Precise. They spent months preparing this. I let them finish the entire pitch. Every slide. Every lie disguised as strategy. Every promise dripping with betrayal. When Mark finally asks, all in favor, several hands start to rise. That's when I slide my folder forward. One moment, I say, voice calm as winter ice. I'd like to present a document as well. Mark's smile falters. I take out the notarized ownership paper, the one from the deposit box. The one with my father's signature. The one proving I hold full controlling majority. Valerie's eyes narrow. Mark swallows. Before any vote, I continue. We should clarify ownership standing. According to transfer papers dated June 14th, 2003, I am the majority shareholder, 51%. Silence. Someone exhales sharply. Another drops their pen. Mark forces a laugh, shaky. That's impossible. We checked. You checked what I let you see. I slide a second document. A third. A fourth. Financial reports. Hidden transfers. Affair evidence. Misuse of campaign funds. Conflict of interest. Enough to end careers. Valerie pales. Mark reaches for the papers. I pull them back. No touching. Legal counsel has copies. One of the board members whispers, "Oh my God." My heartbeat doesn't race. It slows. Cold. Measured. Exact. You tried to remove me, I say quietly, so I'm following protocol. I look directly at him, the man who shared my bed, my future, my dreams. Mark Davis, I'm terminating you from the company. Effective immediately. He stiffens. You can't. I can, I answer. And I just did. Security, already alerted ahead of time, enters the room. 2 officers stand behind him. He looks around desperately, searching for a lifeline. Valerie avoids his eyes. He whispers, barely audible, "Evie, don't do this." And for the first time, he is the one trembling. As they escort him out, he passes me slowly. He leans close, voice broken. "You'll pay for this." I smile without warmth. "No, Mark. I already did. Now it's your time." His face drains. That was the moment his blood ran cold. The boardroom emptied like a battlefield after victory. Papers scattered, chairs pushed back, half-drunk coffee cooling beside abandoned pens. I stood alone for a long moment, looking at the seat where Mark had sat, so sure he ruled the table. Funny how quickly power changes hands when truth walks in holding receipts. When I finally stepped out, the air in the hallway felt different, lighter, honest. Employees stole glances at me, whispers trailing like smoke. News travels fast between cubicles, faster than emails ever could. Some people looked proud, some nervous. A few looked heartbroken. Betrayal always breaks more than 2 hearts. Mia found me near the elevators, eyes wide, a tremor in her voice. Was that really happening? I nodded. That was all it took. She hugged me, not as an assistant, as someone who had watched me pour years into the company. And in her arms, for the first time since the night I found that second phone, I let myself cry. Not from fear anymore, from release, from survival, from the exhaustion of carrying pain in silence. But winning has its aftermath. Removing Mark wasn't the end, just the beginning of the cleanup. Over the next weeks, legal actions were filed for fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Valerie's campaign funding was investigated, leading to headlines splashed across national news. Mark's assets were frozen pending financial review. Staff morale shook, but then steadied. Truth creates stability. He moved out quietly, leaving behind only shirts, cologne, and a memory of a life I once imagined. He didn't fight for the house. He couldn't. He was too busy fighting to stay out of prison. Some nights I lay awake staring at the empty side of my bed, the cold imprint of what used to be love. Was I sad? Yes, even when a betrayal is deserved, grief still shows up uninvited. Marriage isn't just a person, it's a routine, a shared toothbrush cup, a voice in the kitchen on Sunday mornings. Ending it felt like pulling out a root that had grown through my bones. But slowly, peace returned. I went back to the cabin often, not to escape, but to breathe. I'd sit beside the fireplace with my father's journals, reading the underlined lines he left like breadcrumbs. One page said, "If they take from you, let them think they have won. Only then do you see everyone's true face. Truth is the sharpest weapon." He predicted this, maybe not the affair, not the politics, but the world. The wolves, the hunger for power. He left me the map, the key, the armor. And I finally understood those 9 words. When they come for what's yours, let them. Let them show their hands. Let them make the feist move. Let them believe you're blind. Because revenge served quietly tastes better than rage thrown loudly. Within 3 months, Mark was indicted. Valerie withdrew from the Senate race. The newspapers printed headlines far louder than the whispers that once mocked me. Consulting CEO exposes fraud scheme. Husband and politician involved. Her downfall was slow, public, humiliating. His was faster, like a trapdoor beneath his feet. And me, I rebuilt, not from ashes, but from clarity. I restructured the company, promoted loyal staff, increased transparency. Our profits rose, ironically higher than when Mark handled financial channels. I no longer woke with dread. I woke with purpose. Sometimes people ask if I forgave him. Truth, forgiveness didn't free him. It freed me. Hate keeps you tied to the person who hurt you. I cut the rope. Even so, there was still one thing left unfinished. Something I had delayed, intentionally or maybe subconsciously. I hadn't responded to Mark. Not once. Not by call. Not by text. Not in court. Until one evening, after reviewing company reports, I opened a message he sent weeks earlier. "Tell me why you did this. We could have fixed it." I typed slowly. "You didn't just betray my marriage. You tried to steal my life." I hit send. No anger. No profanity. Just truth. Sharp enough to cut quietly. He replied only once. "I never thought you'd fight back." And I smiled, closing the phone like closing a book. Because he was right. I didn't fight back. I won back what was mine. But the story wasn't finished. Not until you hear the last part, the message, the healing, the lesson that changed everything about how I see loyalty, trust, and strength. Because this story didn't end in revenge. It ended in something far more powerful. Life eventually settled into a rhythm again. Quieter, steadier, more honest than before. No luxury dinners with politicians. No fake smiles across glossy tables. Just me, rebuilding in the sunlight instead of shadows. Some mornings I'd wake up and still half expect to hear Mark brewing coffee downstairs like he used to, humming that same Sinatra song. Grief is strange. It lingers even when the person is gone, even when the love has long expired. But healing is slow, gentle work. Not loud like revenge. Soft, like learning to breathe without pain. One weekend, months after the boardroom war, I returned to my father's cabin again. The rain had finally stopped, and sunlight spilled across the porch in warm ribbons. I brewed tea, wrapped myself in his old flannel blanket, and sat at the table where I first opened that envelope. The key still rested there, iron, heavy, symbolic of something bigger than a deposit box. It felt like a piece of him, of his foresight, his protection. I opened his journal again, the one with dog-eared pages and scribbles in the margins. My father wasn't a wealthy man. No polished speeches, no business jargon, just wisdom earned from struggle. On the final page, written in worn ink barely clinging to the paper, he'd left a message I missed the first time. Power isn't taken by force. It's taken back by clarity. Know your worth, even when they don't. I pressed my thumb to those words, and for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to feel proud, not for surviving, but for choosing resilience over bitterness. Losing $6.3 million hurt. But losing myself would have been far more expensive. People think strength is loud. Mine was silent, a decision to stand, to think, to wait instead of react, to let them step into their own trap. And those 9 words from my father, when they come for what's yours, let them. I finally understood. Let them come. Let them believe they've won. Let them take the first swing. Then respond not with rage, but with truth. Because truth doesn't argue. It exposes. Sometimes I sit by that cabin fireplace and imagine telling him everything that happened. How his letters saved me. How his planning protected my future. How a single envelope gave a broken woman back her power. I hope he'd be proud. I think he would. Even now, when I walk into my office, I run my fingers over the plaque beside the glass door. Evelyn Carter, founder and CEO. And I smile, not because victory tasted sweet, but because peace tastes sweeter. Mark is gone from my story now, just a name printed in court documents, a lesson carved into my backbone. Valerie's name faded from headlines. People moved on, and so did I. But I didn't rebuild for revenge. I rebuilt for me. If you're listening to this, if you've ever been betrayed, lied to, underestimated, hear me when I say this. You can lose money. You can lose love. You can lose the life you planned. But if you don't lose yourself, you can rebuild anything. Did you like my story? Please like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far this story of mine travels. And here is my final message, the one I wish I could send back to the woman I was before everything fell apart. Never fear losing what can be taken. Fear forgetting what you're capable of rebuilding. Because sometimes life breaks you, only to show you you're made of steel. The kind that doesn't rust.